Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast with Michael Becker and Paul Peebles. During this program, you will hear interviews with real-life successful investors who will share their stories and provide useful advice on how to acquire, finance, and operate apartment complexes. Now, here they are, Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, national underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me today would typically be the mayor, the governor himself, Mr. Michael Becker, smartest guy in the room, but he is on another due diligence assignment. So in the podcast today with me today, Ricardo Hinojosa with Old Capital. Ricardo, how are you?
I'm doing great, Paul. Great to be here.
Thanks for being on the podcast. We appreciate your help and appreciate all the hard work that you do with all the borrowers that do financing through Old Capital. Ricardo is just a brilliant guy. Make sure you reach out to Old Capital. Always ask for Ricardo. He is the best of the best. So, Ricardo, thanks again for being in the podcast today. Anything going on in the Old Capital world these days, Ricardo?
Well, we're staying busy. The biggest thing coming up is we have our annual conference, the biggest event of the year, coming up October 24th and 25th here in Dallas.
Mm-hmm. So that, if you've never been to our conference before, it's about 600-700 people. This year, it's going to be at the House of Blues.
That's right.
We've rented out the House of Blues. We have our keynote speaker that's going to come. We haven't announced that yet. We're announcing that towards the end of the month, end of this month. So look for that great keynote speaker. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. He or she is one of the best out there. And will bring some great words of wisdom to you if you're in the apartment business. So looking forward to that. One of the things that we're going to have, and we've had a lot of people get into the multifamily business in the last 2, 3, 4 years that have never seen a history of multifamily for the last 25 or 30 years. So we're going to bring in some guys in some rocking chairs. We're going to probably put 4 or 5 rocking chairs out on stage, and we're going to have guys and gals who are going to be doing it for at least 35, 40 years on multifamily ownership and management. And we want to talk with them a little bit about how not to get sued, how not to break your balance sheet, how not to ask for capital calls from your limited partners. We're going to get some of the experts out there that have done it for a long period of time, and we want to pick their brains on what to do. So that's going to be at the Old Capital Multifamily Conference on October 24th, 25th. Make sure you go to oldcapitalpodcast.com and get your reservation to come see us in Dallas. So we look forward to seeing you there. Second thing, also don't forget the 17-page white paper report on multifamily financing. You want to make sure you download that at the oldcapitalpodcast.com. And if you have a chance, go into iTunes or Stitcher and give us a 5-star rating. We would appreciate that. If we bring value to some of the transactions that you want to get into, if you are an engineer, if you are an attorney that want to get into multifamily, we would appreciate you continue to listen to our podcast. Hopefully we give you enough information to give us a 5-star review. So in the podcast today, we have one of our friends that we've known for a while. He's kind of an interesting guy that has built a portfolio and has done it the right way, baby steps. And he's gone from buying, say, an 18-unit building to buying a 27-unit building and to a 71-unit building. And he has just done a great job just making baby steps along the way. And I know he's out there looking for a 125 to 150-unit building. But I want to highlight today our friend Alex Clark. Alex, thanks for coming into the podcast. We appreciate that.
Hey, Paul, Ricardo, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm going to turn it over to the Grand Inquisitor, Mr. Ricardo Hinojosa. Ricardo, let's get talking.
Absolutely. We'll get started. Alex, again, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here.
Good to talk to you. We've been friends and worked together for a few years.
Yeah.
And like Paul said, it's been great to see you kind of grow in this business over the last 3, 4, 5 years. So let's just start from the beginning. Let's talk about your background and how you got started in real estate.
Well, background is there's a little story that kind of got me to where I am now. I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could.
Oh, I like that bumper sticker.
Yeah, it is a good one. Still love Florida. So while in college, driving a junkie car on 114 rush hour traffic, the transmission decides to go out. So I'm on the shoulder of the road there and wondering how I got here and how I'm going to get out of this. And I didn't know anything about finance, didn't know anything about saving money, didn't understand real estate, none of it. So after that terrible experience, I really dedicated a lot of my time, instead of going out to movies, watching TV, to reading everything there was about real estate, about investing in stocks, bonds. I had bonds while I was in college, paper bonds. I mean, just anything. I made a goal to start buying gold bars, silver bars, just anything so that never happened to me again. And one of my friends said that I was talking to investing about, he said, hey, one of our buddies, he buys real estate, like houses. He goes, no, apartments. I said, what do you mean? Just regular people can buy apartments? Yeah. He goes, yeah, you should go talk to him. So I did. We had a 6-hour conversation about multifamily investing. That was back in 2015, and that kicked off all of this. Deciding that being broke, a dead car, was not the way to go.
But you did invest in a brand new car, at least.
I did. Multiple. Yeah.
So that's back in 2015. At that point, you owned no real estate.
I had just my own single family home that we had built. And so what happened is I joined a coaching and mentoring group, Lifestyles Unlimited. And I did that in 2015. And within 30 days of joining, I invested passively with a syndicator. Okay. And that kicked it off for me.
So explain exactly what the heck that means. You invested it with a syndicator?
Yeah.
I mean, tell me a little bit what that means.
So this individual, this was their 5th time syndicating a deal. So a syndicator essentially is they come to accredited and sophisticated investors and they share the deal with everybody, what they have and what we can get out of it by investing with them. They pool all the funds together and they buy this multifamily asset. And it was a large asset. It was 600 plus units. And that wasn't the goal just to do that, but I wanted to do that so that I could learn and get access to how do they do their rehab? How do their financials look? What's a rent roll and why should I care? And had the opportunity to tour the property multiple times, go to the meetings, get on the calls, review the financials every month. And so just got a good understanding. So within about 3 or 4 months of just being a part of that, I went to my mentor and I said, hey, I want to do this. And he said, okay, well, calm down, Turbo. We're not going to jump into a 500, 600 unit property right away. I said, okay, I understand that. So he gave me a bunch of assignments. He goes, this should probably take you 2 or 3 months to do. I said, okay, got it. So I did everything he said in 30 days. Came back to him. We sat down for a couple hours. We went through it. He wanted to make sure that I had a good understanding of what was going on.
Just give me kind of an outline. What did he want you to do, this mentor?
So he gave me some different books to read on multifamily housing. Lifestyles also has a lot of different webinars. They have different reading material, just a lot of coaching and mentoring documents and things to read and watch to understand what's going on. And then with every single webinar you go through and document that you read, they have a little test at the end and it's a pass fail. And so you've got to get 100% correct. And so then once I did all of that he asked me to do, and then we had a meeting, make sure that I comprehended what he had asked me to do. Then he gave me the $ blessing. And then I sat down with one of their brokers and we started looking for a property. And so then we started.
That's how you going.
Yeah.
So I remember that time we had talked, I think, shortly after that.
We did.
And how did you come up with kind of your box? So what was, they put together a little bit of a roadmap for you. What were you looking for at the time?
So initially, I just wanted to get into it because I'd seen what others had done and how they had done it. And I was thinking, you've got these cash flow properties and then you've got these ugly properties with good bones that need to be fixed up. And I look at myself as a visionary type of guy who sees something that has a lot of potential that could be better. And my friends had done this first deal we invested in, they had done this. So I said, you know what, this is what I want to do. So one of the brokers brought me to this little 18-unit property in Dallas. And you had actually walked it with me. Yep. I was back in 2016. And he walked in and he said, this is going to be a good one for you. You may not make a whole lot of money on it, but it'll be a good experience. So we were able to take down the property using one of the banks, local banks that you'd made the introduction to. And we took down the property. It was completely, I think it was 100% occupied on takeover. Reviewed the rent roll. No one had leases. There were a lot of door-to-door sales, pharmaceutical salesmen going.
Independent pharmaceutical sales.
Yes.
And nobody had leases.
No leases, no. So we went in there and we started making corrections. Started with the leases, background checks, things of that nature. Occupancy quickly dropped below 50%. Which was fine, actually. So it went along with the plan, which was to go in there and to create something that didn't exist with the other properties in the submarket. Now, not too far out of the submarket, you could see the regentrification, the improvement, the renovations that were going on. Shortly after I bought this property, The property next door and the property across the street were sold. They went 0% occupancy. I'm at 40% occupancy. Everybody started working on their properties at the same time. So the vision for this was to go in, Lower Greenville area, completely renovate all the units, and then the exterior also. And so what I wanted to do was give it a sense of community. I wanted people to come in there and feel like, okay, this is I feel safe here. This is nice. It's comfortable. It had 2 buildings. In the middle of the buildings, a really nice courtyard. Yeah. So we put the grill in there, a pergola. We actually put controlled access on the front and back. It was back parking. And this thing that I had, this idea, was from this show I saw many, many years ago, this 90210 show. And so I wanted this sense of community, a sense where people could come into this really cool courtyard, this design that we had created. We repainted it, all this just the woodwork that had been done on the building and on the railing and things. It just looked really cool. The colors were really trendy on the exterior. It was gates on both sides. So it was just a safe atmosphere.
Did you get a bunch of cute girls and cute boys as tenants with a lot of problems that they would be good on TV? But
a reality show?
A reality show?
Yeah, it became an Instagram hotspot. Yeah. So, we had third-party management on it also. And one of my buddies and I, we drove out there one day, and he's like, hey, I just want to see what you're doing. And this is the buddy who introduced me to this whole concept of investing in multifamily. And it's raining cats and dogs out there, and it had covered parking under the buildings for enough, about 3 cars on each side. And not a single car was under it. They didn't want to park under it, we found out, because someone would pull in behind them and block them in. So no one ever used it. So I came up with this idea, why don't we turn it into storage lockers? So what we did under one of the buildings to prove the concept is we turned it into storage lockers. I think I might have spent around $12,000 or so for about 12 storage lockers under this covered parking. So we put in 3 sides, just commercial grade storage lockers. And it worked. What was interesting though was the property next door. They were our customers. The guy down the street with a Harley and no garage, he was our customer. Mm-hmm. So it just wasn't our residence, and it completely filled up within under 2 months. So it increased our value of the property significantly, about 9-10 times what we actually spent because of the revenue we were pulling in. So about 12-13 months into it, I called Ricardo. I said, hey, I want to sell this. What do you think? And I talked to my broker with Lifestyles. Hey, I want to sell this. What do you think?
Yeah.
And we had bought it from an out-of-state seller. And so the broker with Lifestyles, she put it on the market. Guy out of California calls. Sold. Cash deal.
Really?
Yeah. It's like a 30-day close, something like that. So 14 months of ownership.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back really quick and talk about the rehab, because it was a pretty heavy rehab.
It was.
How much did you invest in the deal? What was your purchase price, and how much of a rehab approximately?
So yeah, the purchase price was $1 million, and the renovation was probably about $250, right around there.
Okay.
And so the exterior, we had to do some demo on some old walls. It was 1960s style stuff that was old decoration. Pulled all that down. We put in cedar planking on the stairs, all new doors, painted everything, concrete work. We put in sidewalks, new steps, the pergola, the grill. Then on the interior, we went in, put in new cabinetry, granite countertops, new flooring, vinyl plank flooring, all new brushed nickel fixtures, LED lighting. And a cool thing about the property too, the seller, he didn't really want to put any money into it. All he wanted to do is treat it as an ATM. 4 of the bathrooms stopped working. There was some kind of issues. He removed the toilet and boxed in the tub and the shower and created a bigger closet, a second closet. So we went in, we removed all that, installed the toilet, reinstalled the sink, refinished the shower, the tub, all of that, and we added an extra bathroom. Instead of being a 2-1, it was now a 2-2.
No kidding. So tell me a little bit about how many investors were in that deal. What type of rate of return did you make? And again, past performance is not indicative of future rates of return, but what type of a return did you
So this deal, it was kind of my training wheels, essentially.
Sure.
Yeah. And so we had 11 members in this deal. And I want to say they put in anywhere from 25 to 50,000. And myself and... yeah, it was about 25 to 50,000. I was the largest shareholder in this or investor in this deal. And we never paid a dividend. All the money was reinvested into the asset to help pay for all the capital expenditures. And that was the plan the entire time. Everybody was perfectly fine for that. So what we did is when we sold the property and I got all the money orders ready or cashier's checks ready for all the investors, we had a check party. I'd never been to one of these before. I'd heard of them. So I went to a local steakhouse and asked them, hey, I'd like to bring in a bunch of my friends and their family, and I'd like to have this party. And I'd like you to open up the bar for them, open up the menu for them. Invited everybody over, and I handed out their checks. And so in 14 months, it was an 80% return on their investment.
That's pretty good.
Very
Great.
good.
It was great.
So you returned all their capital
That's correct.
plus an additional 80%.
That's correct. Yeah.
in 2 years.
14 months.
And how was the steak dinner?
It was glorious.
Best steak they'd ever tasted. I'm
It
sure.
was. I felt very loved that night.
So one of the things you mentioned a minute ago, you went through a laundry list of all of your upgrades to the
Right.
property. A lot of cosmetic stuff, the paint, the cedar planks. This was your first deal. And we were at a case study last night, you and I.
You're right.
And one of the audience members asked this question, how did you know what to do on your first deal? So talk a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't really reinvent the wheel. And what I did is I'd seen how my friends had been successful and they invited me to their properties. I'd said, listen, I'll do whatever you need. I'd just like to see what's going on. So one of my buddies one day took me up on that. And so we're wiping down his washer and dryers in his laundry room. I mean, he had a lot of pride in his property. Just anything they needed, I would go out and I would just pick their brain. Why are you doing this? How'd you pick this paint color? Why this flooring? Why these fixtures? And I noticed all your fixtures are exactly the same in this property. Go to another buddy's property. All the fixtures between the properties are exactly the same, different owners. And they explained to me, hey, this works. This is what people like. It's beautiful. It's trendy. And so I use the same paint colors they use, the same flooring, the same ceiling fans.
Yeah.
So it just was a matter of just collaboration with other owners that, they're smarter than me. They've done this longer and they know what works. They've got the recipe for the cake.
Outstanding.
Anything on your side, Ricardo, about the transaction you remember?
Yeah. So the biggest thing was the location.
Right.
And that's what you loved the most about it, because you did have a little bit of a vision. And at that time, you needed to have a vision.
Right.
Because there were some areas around there that were gentrifying, but it wasn't there yet.
No.
But you felt really strongly about that. And that's what stood out in my mind was, hey, you 100% believed that it was coming. And I've just got to be on the forefront of it. So kudos to you for seeing that.
Thanks.
Because a lot of people didn't.
To add to that, one really big thing was that in acquiring this property, we didn't just randomly, we went out there with the broker and we visited multiple properties. But one thing, before I submitted the LOI, I spent the weekend just driving circles around the whole area. I mean, we visited every single street, every property within a couple of miles. And I knew what was going on. I knew who was building, where they were building. We understood what they were getting for rents, everything. I mean, there's just no question on what was coming that way. And it was just so interesting that after we started our renovation, the other two properties traded right next door and across the street, and they started their renovation. So it was coming. But 2 blocks down the road, there's tarps on the roofs of those multifamilies.
So I think the other piece is that Alex knew exactly what his business, I mean, you had a clear vision. You knew what the plan was. And from our perspective, that makes it a lot easier, because we were able to really cater the loan to fit your needs. He knew he wanted to be out within 2 to 3 years. He got it a lot sooner. But the key there was we wanted to make sure we had an easy exit with a loan. Minimal prepay, get in, get out, get you the leverage that you needed, get you the rehab, and then allow you to get out pretty clean.
It was really clean. I mean, I remember having a conversation multiple times with the vice president of the bank, the guy you introduced me to, and he called me a couple times on the cell phone, asked me a couple questions about the property, what I was doing. It was just because of the relationship that you guys have with the bank and that you introduced me to, it was seamless. It was almost like, he was a neighbor across the street. Just a really great experience.
Now, Ricardo, how come you guys didn't do a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan on that transaction? Explain why. It sounds like a bank loan typically say is a recourse loan versus a non-recourse loan.
Yeah. So on this deal, it was all around Alex's game plan. So with the Fannie and Freddie Mac loans that we do, a lot of them are longer term debt, and they usually have prepayment penalties, pretty steep prepayment penalties associated with them. And we knew we wanted to stay away from that. Alex was okay with signing recourse. It was a smaller deal, so we were going to have to sign recourse. It was a small deal in his first deal. So, the larger non-recourse products really weren't available to us, but that was okay because they didn't fit his business plan anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk about deal number 2. And where the heck is this 24-unit building? What? Where?
This is Sweetwater, Texas.
Is that the rattlesnake capital of the world?
That is where the Rattlesnake Roundup is at.
Holy cow.
So that's a really interesting deal. We had driven by it a couple times. My kids are in Boy Scouts, and we're really actively involved in it. And we were taking some scouts out to the Rattlesnake Roundup, and you had to literally drive by this property to get there. So we had driven by it for 2 years in a row, never paid any attention to it, just some little property out in a tertiary market, nowhere near anything.
How far from your house?
3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. 3 podcasts, 3 phone calls, and I'm there. That's how I work it. So what had happened was I wasn't looking for a property, this particular property, but it just through the network. I mean, this business is all networking, and you just meet so many great people. You make great relationships. So I'm having drinks with one of my buddies who has a property out in Abilene, and we're just talking about what I want to do, what I'm trying to accomplish, what I'm looking for. And we go on about our day, don't think much about it after that. And then a couple weeks later, he calls me. Hey, there's this property one of my construction guys told me about that his friend is selling. Thought you might be interested. It's not something I'm looking at right now. So I went out, met the construction guy, and he took me by the property. And it was really similar to the Dallas property in the fact that it hadn't been renovated. Nothing had been done in 20 years. So that was essentially similar also with the loan. It was a bank loan, bridge loan, and recourse. But myself and one of my buddies, because the cost of entry was so low, just myself and one other guy, we bought it together, IRO, Independent Rental Owners. And we found a local real estate company that manages single family. And so I actually taught her how to manage this multifamily property for me, collect the rents, run the reports, all of it.
So that was about a year ago.
That was a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that one going?
It's great. 100% occupied. We are by far the priciest property to live in. We get the highest rents per square foot. We're higher than the newest property. But one thing about it is we took a very similar approach that we have here in DFW to there. Now, we didn't over renovate. We didn't overspend on our CapEx, but there's nothing like it there. People come into the units and they see the mosaic backsplash, the new appliances, the beautiful flooring, brushed nickel fixtures. It's just everything that a family wants that when they come into a property. They want to have something nice, something trendy. They feel good about it. So we took that. We did the same thing that we were doing in Dallas, same thing interiors here. And then on the exterior, again, we painted it. We fixed all the carpentry. We just went in, we fixed everything on the exterior, everything on the interior, including roofs. And then we added some amenities. The whole controlled access thing, it works. People like it. So we introduced that onto parts of the building, put fencing up, gates up, more LED lighting so it's really bright at night, added the pergola, added picnic tables, benches, a really nice barbecue grill for the residents to use.
Now, it's a tertiary market. How do you find tenants in a tertiary market? And what do these people do out in Sweetwater, Texas?
So Sweetwater has, besides the Rattlesnake Roundup, they've got a lot of a huge wind farm out there. And they have some pipelines. They have some just different manufacturing. So it's from those. But also in tertiary markets, one thing to be aware of, if there's not a lot of growth in the population, is that people will move from one property to the next. So people move from some of these other properties into our property. Some of the construction workers who were there for just a year on a project, they stayed with us also.
Sounds good. Let's spend a little bit more time on your last transaction, the one you did last year. So tell us a little bit about that, Ricardo.
Yeah, so this one was also 2018, a little bit of a larger asset, a little bit different from the first two. Mm-hmm. So let's get into that one. Tell us a little bit about the largest asset that you have in Fort Worth.
So this property was called Willow Manor. We bought it last year, And it's also a syndication, as the first property was. And this one of the brokers within Lifestyles called me one day and said, "Hey, I've got this property. Would you like to go tour it?" Absolutely. I'd love to tour it. And so we went out, checked it out, and it has a really interesting history that the seminary in Fort Worth used to own the property. It was in impeccable condition. They really took care of it. You could tell that the people that were staying there respected it, loved it, and just it was in great shape. So they had it. It traded. Another South Texas owner bought it. He had it for a few years and then sold it to me. And so we went in there, and again, we don't reinvent the wheel. After takeover, we immediately started tightening down on some of the things as far as the leases. Some leases were expired. Again, shortly after takeover, occupancy dropped to mid-80s. And we took advantage of that opportunity by going in there and starting our renovation plan. We had planned to renovate 60+% of the units, so that was great. Construction guys were already aware of what the plan was. They were ready to go, and they just went in. And when you have multiple units available at one time, instead of your painter coming in for one day, he can spend the whole week there and he can paint all the units. The floor guy comes in there and he can do the floors for all of them. So we were turning these units in under 7 days apiece. And being that it's in Fort Worth, they leased up right away.
And this was a larger asset, correct?
Correct.
How many units?
71 units, built in late 60s.
Late 60s.
Yeah.
Paint a picture what the property looks like. You know, it was built in the 1960s. Is it a flat roof, pitch roof, individually metered? You know, 2-pipe chiller. You know, give me an idea what the heck it looks like.
Yeah. So it's a gated community. It's pitched roofs, multiple buildings. It is master metered on the water, master metered on the electricity. It is a chiller, 2-pipe chiller system, 2 boilers.
Any problem with that technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did is when we were in our due diligence period, we had 3 weeks to go through that. We brought in plumbers, electricians, roof guys, foundation guys. All the major trades came in and checked it out. And we had found out that our boiler chiller system had some problems with it. It was the original. So one thing that I like to do is fix everything right away. And so we did. We replaced some boilers. We replaced major chiller components right away. They found 3 or 4 issues with the cast iron piping. So the place turned into a construction site pretty quickly. We had bulldozers, backhoes on the property, digging up all this piping and replacing it because it was leaking. And that was one thing we noticed is, you know, having a good team, you can talk about, hey, what's your water expenditures per unit for this type of property or in this area? And we have friends that have properties in Fort Worth. And when we did a comparison of my water bill to their water bill, 2x what they were. And so we found those problems and we fixed them right away.
Why clean up and do all the repairs up front on these properties? Why didn't you just take out a cash flow out of the deal?
So the whole reason we wanted to go in there and fix everything is so it's in good shape. And once we fix all the issues, then we could start cash flowing for all the investors in this and just pay them a quarterly dividend. So, you know, their investment is paying off.
Okay, so you do all the repairs up front.
Yes.
You push rents higher, faster than if you were able to do it over a period of 18 to 24 months trying to do it. And, you know, we're just talking about economies of scale. You get the painter in instead of one day, you get them in there for, 7 days or 14 days, get all this work done up front instead of piecemeal.
That's right.
Deal. So if you're acquiring a property, you want to do all the repairs up front. And just like our friend Del Wamsley says, best product, best price on the market itself. So we definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So, you know, the rents, when we had done our market survey and compared to all the other properties in the area, we were 100 to 300 below the market for these renovated units. So right away, after we made these repairs, our utility expenditures dropped. Also with the lighting, when we were touring the property, I would say 40+% of the lights were on in the property, just everywhere. Yeah. So we went in, we replaced them, put LEDs with photocells on them. So the utilities dropped, expenses dropped, then the income started going up. And so with the income going up, the NOI increased. And in 12 months, we've literally doubled our NOI.
How would you define how the property was historically operated? Was there any financial statements on the property?
Yeah, so the seller, he did an okay job, but he didn't take it to the next level. He had a property management company on there. He used a typical property management software that a lot of us use, but he just didn't put the capital into it for the market. to really push the rents to the next level, which is what we have done.
Your CapEx budget was
the CapEx budget for this was $650,000 to do a complete paint job, fix everything, add gutters, water, control some of the issues with the water just standing in different areas, adding the grills, the pergolas again, fixing up all the units, replacing boiler chiller components, just major renovations.
Do you self-manage, and why or why not?
So I do not self-manage. We have a third-party property management company. Being that it's a larger property, it was almost like I just needed to have the coaching, the direction, and the guidance to do it. Would I be afraid to self-manage? No, not at all. Not anymore. I understand the concept. But yes, we do use third-party property management. I'm still out there all the time. Yeah. I still manage the managers. I managed all of the CapEx projects myself. I'm the one who got the bids. I'm the one who oversaw every single step of the way.
Now, do you have a full-time job, or is this what you do?
So upon acquisition, I had a full-time job. I spent 19 years with a major telecommunication company, but now, no, I retired from that to do this full-time and to give it all my attention.
So that just happened, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So my company was announcing that they were going to do a layoff, and they were going to lay off 8% of the management. But they said, hey, in order to lighten the blow, we'll take some volunteers. And they had this conference call, and I'm listening to this conference call. I'm texting my wife. They are laying off 8%. It's terrible for a lot of people. This is awesome for me. I'm going to volunteer. I was super excited, but I didn't get there overnight. I mean, I had been working towards this goal since 2015. I'd been very, very careful in how we acquired these properties, how we spent our money, every step of the way. And here's the level we took it to. When we first started, lived in a really nice house. We built this house. We loved it. We sold that house so that we would have money for another multifamily deal. We moved into another neighborhood, rented a house for 2 years. It was a huge step down in what we were used to, the way we were used to living. I never told my wife, but I hated living in that house all 2 years that we were there. But that wasn't the point. I mean, it's all about the why we were doing it, and why we were, working so hard and sacrificing so that we could get to where we are now. So that I want it to be, these deals, I want my money in it too. I believe in them. And I want the investors who are, jumping on board into this asset, into this investment, to see, hey, Alex, he's putting his money into this deal. He believes in it also. And I was going to make that happen. And selling that house, moving into a rental, that was one way of doing it. Yeah. But here's the thing too. We invested in multiple passive deals. We have 7 passive properties in our portfolio along with these others. And what happened was some sold, some refinanced. And it's almost like a snowball effect. When you start investing passively, you buy a property, and then as far as a syndication, and then you do an IRO where you and another buddy go out and buy it, and then you do another syndication, and you continually passively invest. It snowballs. It gets bigger and bigger. And I have learned that if you take any one thing in your life and you put a lot of focus in it and concentration on it and study it and just put the time and the effort into it, you'll get the results you want. But another key component is not just, working hard. It's the networking, having a team. You guys are huge in making all of this happen. From the contractors we use to the insurance companies to the mentors at Lifestyles, all of it. This is a huge team effort. Couldn't have done it. Couldn't have gotten to this point. Couldn't continue to excel without this.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I think your decision to, hey, I'm willing to take a few steps back to reach my goals, to then take 10 steps forward, absolutely to be commended. I mean, that's fantastic. And you did it within a very short period of time.
It was
we're talking 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. It was a lot of focus.
You've been able to reach your goals, retire, and you're continuing to grow your business. So that's fantastic.
Everything has gone into it, all the time, all the energy, and all the money.
Tell me a little bit about going back to this last property here. How many investors did you have into the deal, and how long did it take you to raise the money?
Yeah, so this is a syndication also. We have 26 investors in it, and we were well oversubscribed in less than a week. It took no time at all. The vision, putting together the business plan that I do and creating the vision for the investors. And I don't approach it from this is what Alex wants to do. I approach it from the relationships I have with all these investors to what is it they want and why do they want this? And so I know very well, I know all my investors and I know exactly what they're going for and why they're doing what they're doing, from the guys that work at the power company to the attorneys to the CPAs. I completely understand what they want and why they're doing it, which is, another thing we've done at our properties is property tours with the investors, little get-togethers on the property multiple times, monthly financials, just talking. I send out the financials and I say, hey, here's the income, here's the expense, here's the NOI, here's the rent roll. But then I tell them, hey, we're doing this. Where we installed a grill, a pergola, we painted this building, we we fixed this issue. When they can almost feel it with what's going on. They know the paint colors. They just know everything about the property. In addition to that, something I'd like to share is that there's a school, elementary school, right across from the property. So one of the teachers, my wife was a teacher. She also retired from teaching so she could do this full time. So being that she's a teacher and I know how it is for teachers and what it's like, I went to the school and I asked the principal, I said, what is it that we can do for you? Because we're right across the street. We've probably got 70 plus kids that go to your school. She goes, yeah, you do. And here's what we need. Here's the struggle. So I went to the investors and the contractors and I said, if you're interested, I want to do a school drive. I'd like to get some backpacks and all the stuff kids in elementary schools need. And if you'd like to contribute, that'd be great. So I'd never done this before and I didn't know how it would go. It was overwhelming. People just came in, contractors, investors with $50, $100, $200 Visa gift cards, Target cards. I had a truckload full of backpacks, notebooks, just everything kids needed. And so it took 4 school staff plus myself to empty the truck, bring everything in for the school and just provide for them. And just to give back. And I told the principal, I said, I don't want anything in return. I just want to contribute. We're a part of the community and we don't want to be a curse. We want to be a blessing. Yeah. So another cool thing is we have 2 teachers from that school that live on our property. Before, none. Now, 2.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I'm really proud about that. Yeah. It's a big thing. It's not just me, it's we. And when you take into effect what can help the community, along with the investors, we all want a return on our investment. But if we can give back in some way, selfishly, that's key to me.
Great stuff, man.
Yeah,
Great
that's
stuff.
what we've done.
Let's wrap up Willow Manor, because the business plan there was a little different than the first 2. The first 2 are kind of more value plays, shorter term holds. Talk about this one. What's the long-term game plan with that deal? So
this is going back to what you and Paul were talking about with the Fannie Mae loan. This is a Fannie Mae green loan that Fannie Mae said, hey, listen, to qualify for this loan, you've got to meet this certain criteria, which was great. We were going to do that regardless. So the fact that they wanted to give us a better interest rate to execute our plan of water saving, just saving on all the utilities, great, we'll do it. So it's a little bit of a longer term hold. It's a 5+ year hold. And it's a hybrid, meaning that we had a lot of room to make improvements on the units, on the exterior, fix everything once and done, hopefully, and increase the rents. And then we will be cash flowing this year.
So this was a stabilized deal going in, and it underwrote pretty well. I think we're able to get really nice leverage, high 70s, almost 80%
correct
of your total cost into the deal. So it underwrote well, but you knew it had some value. So like you said, a perfect hybrid play. The cash flows, but has the upside longer term.
You're right.
Excellent.
Tell me a little bit about, you said your wife was a teacher and she's recently retired. What kind of a role does she play with the Clark Investment Group?
Yeah. So she retired this year. This last school year was her last year. Teacher of the Year award, #1 science teacher. She's highly intelligent. So she said, Alex, I want to play a greater role in doing this. When do you think I can do that as far as, full time? We reevaluated, being that I'm kind of a spreadsheet nerd. So we reevaluated, we put everything on a spreadsheet. I said, this is the year. And so now her role is dealing with the front office stuff, the ResMan, the software. She's reviewing all that. She's working with investor relations, things of that nature, more front end relationship things.
I always try to ask Any funny stories that you can recall in this journey of buying apartment buildings?
So, how it is when in order to acquire one property, you're probably going to visit a dozen before you find the property you want to buy. And so in visiting these different properties, touring them with my broker, the selling broker, they always want to show you, hey, look at this unit. Here's our value add unit. You can go in there, you could fix it up. And okay, great. Now show me your renovated unit. So, okay, great. We have this renovated unit. This guy, he just moved in. It's a beautiful unit. He's not here right now. And so we'll show you. So we go in there. Sure enough, the new flooring, new paint, new fixtures, all that. Seen it a million times. It looks beautiful. Great. They have patios, by the way. Thus, oh man, this is great. They have this little fenced in area where they can keep whatever they want to keep. So I just push the blinds open and look right there behind the glass on the ground, and he's got cannabis plants all over the place.
Pot plants.
Yes.
So
yes.
he had
growing his own medical marijuana.
So, what do you do in a situation like that? What does the manager say? Do they kind of shoo you out?
Yeah. It was, we're very sorry, highly embarrassed. Let's move on quickly. And then they're on their phone texting somebody. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. So again, touring properties, these Dallas properties, I guess. So touring another property in Dallas about a year and a half ago or so, we go into a 3-bedroom unit that they want to show us. It's a renovated unit. Again, a new resident who had moved in. We see the master bedroom, looks great, can see what they've done. We go into open another door and it's dark, flip on the light. And there's a whole bank of like fish tanks on the right-hand side and left-hand side, but there's no fish in them. One side of it is full of spiders, not just any spider, but I'm talking tarantulas and all other kinds that I'm not familiar with. On the other side of the wall, bugs, crickets. So I assume the crickets were for feeding the spiders, but I'm talking 100 plus. So we shut that door and I'd like to see what else is behind door number 3. So we open door number 3, similar concept, similar setup, snakes though. He has a wall full of snakes, rattlesnakes and just coral snakes. And then
poisonous snakes.
Poisonous snakes, yeah. And then on the other wall, mice to feed the snakes.
Crazy.
You just never know what you're going to see.
Yeah, if you're in the multifamily business for over a period of time, you're going to see some wacky, wild stuff and rats and snakes and spiders and crickets and all kinds of stuff. Like I was telling Alex before, is that I walked into the property and saw an aquarium against the wall, and guy was preparing dinner, and he had 2 full-grown ducks in an aquarium. So live ducks that he was going to have for dinner the following night. So you see some wacky stuff.
Well, we say that this is a people business.
It is
right?
a people
business. So you
business.
get into this business, you're going to deal with all types of people.
Yes, you will.
Yeah. Anything more that you'd want to leave us with, Alex? And over the period of time that you've done a great job putting these opportunities together. Any words of wisdom for people that are just coming into the business? Yeah,
absolutely. A real common theme that you'll hear when you get into this, or if you're thinking about it, is the team. Networking, going to these events, that Lifestyle hosts multiple times a month, and meeting and networking, shaking hands with these people. A lot of people are hesitant. They don't know that this is real. I don't come from a real estate background. I don't have a whole lot of history with this. But you know what? I met people. I spent time with people. I researched it, and I just worked at it. And you can do it. Like you guys said at the last Old Capital conference at AT&T Stadium, get in the game. Get in the game.
Awesome.
Sounds great. Ricardo, anything else?
So what's next? I know you've got some bigger goals. What are some of your longer term goals?
Yeah, so I continue to stick with what I like. The